Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Marie Herman, and I am the owner of MRH Enterprises, LLC. I am so happy to be here hosting Executive Secretary Magazine's weekly admin chat. Today, we are going to be looking at lookup functions in Microsoft Excel. I'm going to get you familiar with several of the different lookup functions that are available, and then you can make a decision once you've seen them all as to which one is going to work best for your particular set of data. So let me go ahead and I'll share my screen and we will get started. All right, so I'm going to start with the lookup function, just the generic basic lookup function, and that looks up one value in a row or a column. So it's comprised of this is the parameters for the formula. We have equals lookup, and then in parentheses, lookup value, then a comma, no spaces, lookup vector, comma, result vector. What the heck is that? Well, I've got explanations for you down here. The lookup value is the data that you are actually looking for. So that could be a text or a cell reference. It could be any number of things, but whatever it's whatever you are looking for. The lookup vector is the range that you want to look at. So that's the column where that lookup value is going to be found. And that column needs to be sorted in ascending order. Then there's the result vector. That is the column that you want to pull the results from. Where do you want to get the data from? The lookup formula will work without any column headings. So you don't even have to have labels at the top of your table, even though in general, that's not the best way to work in Excel, but it will work that way. And so I put in a couple of data range information here, alpha, beta, delta, and then I have 100, 200, 300, just a very simple list to get some numbers and data in there. And here are the results of the formula that I put in. It says 200. Well, what is this formula? I show it to you right here. Equals lookup. I'm looking for beta. So here is beta in my list, alpha, beta, delta. I'm looking for beta. And because I'm looking for text, it's in double quotation marks. Then there's a comma. Then A4 through A6. So that is selecting alpha through delta, A4 through A6. That's where I want to look for the word beta. Then my last range is B4 through B6, and that is showing me where I want to look to get the results. So beta, when it's found in cells A4 through A6, the results in the cell next to it, in cells B4 through B6, is 200. So this is telling me my beta is 200, and here's the results, 200. That is how that formula is going to work. There's really a lot of times when you actually need to look up information, especially in larger tables, and get back a value from a different row. And so the lookup formulas that I'm going to show you today are all along these lines. If I need to see information based on what's in column A, I need something returned from column B or column C or column D. And so the lookup formula is one example of that. Important thing you need to remember, that column needs to be sorted in ascending order. So I need to have this, in this case, alphabetical. If I'm going to be using the numeric column, that needs to be sorted alphabetically. Obviously, they don't both have to. In this case, it's just coincidence that they're both alphabetical or numeric. But normally, whatever column you're doing your lookup value in needs to be sorted in ascending order. So you have to remember that. That is important. And this is just a single row or column lookup. We're going to look at some more complicated ones going forward where you can pull from multiple rows or columns. HLOOKUP. This is a horizontal lookup. And so this is going to look up the value of a specified row in a specified column. The format is equals HLOOKUP, and then in parentheses, the lookup value, the table array, the row index number, and the range lookup. What does all that mean? Well, down here we have the explanations. Lookup value, that's the item that you're looking for. In this case, it's the column heading. Table array, where do you want to look for it? So I want to select the range, including column headings. Row index, which row of the table do I want to look in, and then range lookup, which translates to true or false. And true means find the closest match. So if there is not an exact match, that's okay. Find me the closest one that there is. False means find an exact match. It has to be an exact match. And so I have a very simple table here, axles, bearings, and bolts, and then I have numbers under each one of these. And my formula is returning 5. You can see the formula right here, returning 5. Here's the actual formula that's in that cell, equals HLOOKUP, and then in parentheses, axles. So that's telling me I want to look in the column axles, A4 through C7. So A4 is starting where axles are, going through C7, which is the 11 under bolts. 3 is telling me the row index, which row of the table do I want to look in. So in the axles column, I want to go down 3. 1, 2, 3 is the number 5. And I'm insisting on true, and true means find the closest match. So if it wasn't finding what I was looking for, and in this case, it's axles is an exact match. But if I was looking for something like a number, for instance, where it was not an exact match, it would find the next closest one. So if I were actually searching for the number 5, for instance, I could have it find 4 if 5 was not present. So that's the HLOOKUP. And so this is used for going across these columns. You're looking up the value of a specified row and a specified column. VLOOKUP. This lookup, this is actually one of my favorites. I use this one a lot. So VLOOKUP is going to look up the value of other columns in a table with row labels that are based on the value in the first column. It must be in the first column. With the VLOOKUP, it comes under this formula. It's equals VLOOKUP, parentheses, lookup value, comma, table array, comma, column index number, comma, range lookup. And so our choices here are the lookup value. That's what you want to look up. Note it has to always be the first column of your table array, and that column needs to be sorted in ascending order. So I have my column information actually down here. It's underneath here. And so I'm going to be looking up the employee ID with my formulas. I'm going to be typing in an employee ID, and then I'm going to be getting back all the rest of the information based on the employee ID that I put in. So since I'm using the employee ID column, that's what I'm going to be searching on. That has to be the first column in the table. With my HLOOKUP, it needed to be the first row in the table, H being horizontal. With my VLOOKUP, it needed to be the first column in the table. And so it's the vertical lookup versus the horizontal. And these need to be sorted in order, ascending order. If I go back up here, so that was the lookup value is in the first column of your table. The table array is where do you want to look it up. So you have to select your whole table, including your column headings. The column index number is what column do I want to return results from. So looking back at my data here, if I type in my employee ID number and I want to get the first name of the employee, that's going to be column number 2. Column number 1 is employee ID. Column number 2 is the first name. Column number 3 is the last name. So that's what that is referring to with the column index number. What column do you want to return results from? And it's going to be on the same row as whatever your employee ID is. And then the range lookup, this again is true or false. True, or if you left it blank and didn't put anything in there, means find the closest match. False means find an exact match. And so with false, I need to exactly match the employee ID number. And it's pretty common for me with something like this as an example, the employee ID number. I don't want to take a chance on getting the wrong employee. So I want to use false and say this must be an exact match. If it's not an exact match, I don't want you to give me the next closest result. And so up here, I have the same fields. Now, you might be saying, well, here's my data and here it is down here. Why wouldn't I just look in the list for this information and then copy and paste it? Well, number one, you might be copying and pasting it 100,000 times. I mean, how many times might you need to put in an employee ID number and have it show the first name, the last name, in this case, the supervisor, the department, whatever information you want. So the VLOOKUP eliminates that copying and pasting. All you have to do is provide the employee ID number in this particular case. Secondly, I have the data shown here just for illustration purposes, but in real life, this doesn't need to be on the same page. This could be a totally separate worksheet. This could be another worksheet tab. This could be somewhere else on my worksheet. So it doesn't need to be like it is here, where I have my data right below it, and then I have my information being looked up here. So just, don't be thinking, oh, it has to be, 5 rows away. It does not. It can be somewhere totally elsewhere, and it can be hidden from view so that other people can't necessarily look it up. And so in this case, I have left the employee ID field blank. That's because I'm going to be typing in the number there. But all the rest of these cells I have put in the formula. And so here is my first name formula. It's equals VLOOKUP. And then I have my formula here. I put it right below here so you can read it better. Equals VLOOKUP. And I'm looking for A5. So you'll notice this is for B5. This is the formula that's in B5. So I'm telling it, I want you to look one cell over to the left. I want you to go to cell A5, and whatever is in there is what you're going to look up. Where do I want to look that up? So it shows here A16 through E25. So if I scroll down here, you can see this is A16 through E25. This is my whole data range. And then what column do I want to return? I want to return the second column, column number 2. That would be the first name. And so in each one of these other cells on the same row, I actually have the same formula. So this formula is the equal VLOOKUP A5, comma, $A, $16, colon, $E, $25, comma, 3. So it goes to the next column. The next one over, the next one over goes to the same formula, but column 4. The next one over, same formula, column 5. And so all the way across, I've just filled in the fields for the other columns. And so now I can type in 1001, for instance, and that fills in Anderson, Bob, Sales, Sue. And down here, I could put in 1005 and 1003, and it automatically fills in the first name, the last name, the department, the supervisor. So this could be you putting in an account number, and it's filling in the customer name and the customer address and or the sales rep or the company or whatever. It just knows you tell it to look something up, and it's going to pull the data from other columns in that table. So that's the VLOOKUP function. And so HLOOKUP goes across, VLOOKUP goes down for where it's searching. There's another kind of lookup formula, and this one is called index. An index is where you look up the value at the intersection of a particular row and column. Now, index alone, I don't use it a ton, but index actually is part of many, many more advanced formulas. So it's good to understand index because you may not have a need for it specifically as an index formula alone, but as you get into more complicated formulas, it can serve a purpose in more advanced formulas. So this case equals index table, parentheses table, comma, the row number, comma, and then the column number that is the format for this particular formula. And so again, this is going to look up the value at the intersection of a particular row and column. Down below, I'll give you the explanation for these parts. A table is the range of cells that contains the table of data, so you can exclude the column headings for that. A row number is the row position in the table where the value you want to look up is located. And so this is the relative row position in the table, not the actual row number in the worksheet. So in this case, I have row 1, row 2 for this little 3-row table that I've created. The last option is column number, and that is the column position in the table where the value that you want to look up is located. So that's the relative column position in the table, not the actual column number in the worksheet. So order ID is number 1, product is number 2, unit price is number 3, quantity is number 4. That's how the column number is going to work. And so over here, I have some examples for index results. You see 10549. This is actually the value at row 2, column 1. And I put the formula over here equals index $A, $5, colon, $D, $6, comma 2, which is the row number. So the second row is the 10549. And then 1 is the column number, so it's the first column in that row. So 10549. The next one is 15. That is the value at row 1, cell 4, column 4. And that formula is equals index, and then in parentheses, the $A, $5, colon, $D, $6. So that's my A5 through D6. And it is row number 1. So that's my row that starts with 10247. And then column number 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4 makes it the quantity of 15. And so that's the result for that index. It is the value at the intersection of a particular row and column. Excuse me, hold on, I'm going to get a drink. Okay, next, the match function. So match looks up the value of a value, sorry, the value of a reference, and it returns the closest or an exact match. And so I have here example of product and a quantity. I have birds and dogs and cats and fish. I have my quantity column, and it's sorted in order, ascending order. My parts of my formula here equals match the lookup value. That is the number or the text that you're looking for. So that could be a value, something you actually type in. It could be a cell reference, or it could be a logical value like a true false. The lookup array is the range of cells being searched. So you need to tell it where am I going to be searching. And in this case, it's usually one column. And then the match type, do you want an exact match or do you want the closest match? 1 means you want to find the biggest number possible without going over. 0 means I want an exact match. And -1, -1, is going to find the value that is the next greater or equal to the lookup value. And in that case, you're going to sort it in a descending way. So the first one, find the next biggest number without going over, you have to be sorted in an ascending order. So if I were looking for the number 10 and I said I wanted to do 1, it's going to find the next closest number without going over, which between 9 and 12, 9 is the next one without going over. On the other hand, if I wanted it to return 12, then I would need to sort these in descending order, and I would use -1 instead of 1 at the end of the formula. If I put 0 in at the end of the formula, it would only return it if it was an exact match. Otherwise, it's going to say not applicable, doesn't work. And so using my formula here, I have a result of 3. What's 3? I did equals match. I'm looking for the number 10 in the column B4 through B8. So my quantity column, I'm looking for the number 10. I put in the restriction of the number 1 as the match type, which means 1 finds the biggest number without going over, sort it ascending. This is telling me that the third cell in my range, I'm looking in B4 to B8, the third cell, the third row, is the one that matches. It's not an exact match because I don't have 10, but that's okay because I told it didn't have to be. I just want to know the next higher one. So row 1, row 2 is the 6, row 3 is the 9. And so that is telling me this cell is the closest match without going over. Now, one of the ways you can really get the power of Excel with this is actually to use them together. And so I have an example here of the index and the match formula being used together. And this is more complex. It's essentially the same as doing a VLOOKUP formula in many respects, but this gives you way more flexibility, and it's often used in more complex formulas. So some of the more advanced functionality that you might be looking for, you can get a lot more precise with a combination of index and match than you can by using VLOOKUP alone. And another way would be nested if formulas. So I could do this, put in a score and figure out what the grade is with a nested if formula, and it would take me 7 formulas to do it. I'd have to do one for above 90, one for above 80, one for above 70, one for above 60, and then one for below 60. And so that would be 6 different nested if formulas. So the index and match formula lets me accomplish the same result in a much simpler way. So here is the format. It is equals index, and then in parentheses, it looks for the table. And then instead of doing what we did with the index formula where we looked for the row number and the column number, it instead is going to look for the match result, and that will be the row or the column number that we need. So in this case, the match formula is then going to be looking for the lookup value, comma, the lookup array, comma, and the match type. So if we look down here, I have my list again. The table, where you want the result pulled from, in this case, the grades. The lookup value, what do you want to look up? In this case, it's the specific score in this example. The lookup array, where do you want to look up the lookup value? So in this case, it's the whole set of scores. So I want to look up an individual score in the whole list of scores. The match type, the same as it was on our match formula. One or omitted finds the biggest number without going over, and your data needs to be sorted in ascending order. 0 is an exact match only. Now, I'm not using it in this particular example, but you do often need to have an exact match when you're using both index and match in one formula. So choose this carefully as to which type you want. -1, the negative one, that finds the value that is the next greater than or equal to the lookup value. And so in this case, you have to have them sorted in descending order. So if I were looking for our 76 as an example here, if I have it set to 1, then it's going to find the next bigger number, which is going to be 70. It's the next number in the list going up that's right below that number. 0 would not get an exact match because there's no 76 in this list of scores. -1 would be sorted in reverse order. So the 90 would be at the top, the 0 would be at the bottom, and the 76 would return then 80 because that's the higher number as I'm counting down that's closest to 76. So that's what those match types are telling us. And so I have put in here a score and a grade. My score is 76. I just manually type that in. My formula is over here in my cell E5. And that formula I put right below here equals index, and then in parentheses, B5 to B9. So I'm telling it where I want it to search. I want it to pull the right grade. The result is the grade. So from this table, here's my list of grades. And how do I know which grade to pull? Well, I want to match D5, so that's my 76 here is in cell D5, and I want you to take the value in D5 and look it up in A5 through A9, which is my list of scores. And then I want you to find the next closest number without going over. So it's going to look, in this case, for 70 because there's no 76. And so that will return that grade of C. And if I were to put in an 82 here, it makes it a B. And if I put in a 93, it makes it an A. And so that is an example of using the index and the match formula together. As I type in my score, the match looks it up to see whatever it's closest to, and then it returns the index of what the grade is. So that's an example of the index and the match formula. So I hope that this little overview has helped you in understanding some of the lookup functionality that's available in Microsoft Excel. We took a look at the lookup formula, which just returns one value in a one column or a single row or column lookup. We looked at the horizontal lookup, where it looks at the first row of your table and returns a result from a specific row that you request in that column. We looked at the VLOOKUP, which will look for the first column in a table, and then when it finds a match, it will return the results from your specified requested column on the same row. We looked at the index, which gives you the value at the intersection of a particular row and column. We looked at the match function, which looks up the value of a reference and then returns the closest match or an exact match, depending on what you're looking for. And then we looked at the combination of index and match together, which is more complex, but gives you greater flexibility. And that returns a value at a row or a column intersection, but it uses match to figure out which row or column intersection to use. And so that gives you a lot more flexibility. So I bet you are wondering, Marie, how can I get my hands on that file? I want to play with it, but I don't want to recreate those formulas from scratch. I know that's what you want. And you know what? I'm happy to give that to you. So hold on just one moment and I'm going to tell you how. I do want to let you know that I do have a mailing list, and every week I send out information about my upcoming study groups and webinars and seminars, and I also provide computer tips, and I give you information for low cost webinars that are out there, often free. For those of you that are certified administrative professionals and you are looking to earn recertification points, I provide you with some really inexpensive ways to recertify. I offer multi-week study groups to prepare for the Certified Administrative Professional exam. I also have the Microsoft Office Specialist exam, and I do career development boot camps, which are general topics. I've done them on all different kinds of topics, from technology like Website Basics boot camp to a brain studies boot camp, which was awesome. That was so much fun. So I have all different kinds of programs that I offer. I also do half-day virtual seminars, and I have 4 different monthly webinars. Every week, I do a different one. I rotate through these. So I have Advanced Techniques, which is narrowly focused on Microsoft Office topics. I have Tech Warrior webinars, which are non-Microsoft Office technology. I have Mission Elevate, which is focused on the daily skills for administrative professionals. And I have Develop and Inspire You, my DIY series, which is career and professional development focused. So if you would like to join my mailing list, just go to my website, www.mrhenterprises.com. Scroll down on the homepage and you'll see a spot to sign up for my mailing list. But I know what you're really interested in, that spreadsheet. You want to get a copy of this sample Excel spreadsheet that I use to show all these different formulas and the little explanations for them. All you need to do is drop me an email, ExactMagazine, so EXEC, magazine at mrhenterprises.com. Drop me an email there, say, Marie, I'm hoping to get that spreadsheet from the admin chat you did for Executive Secretary Magazine on lookup functions. Would you send it to me? I will be happy to do that. And I will not automatically add you to my email list. So you can send me the request if you don't want to join my mailing list, or if you do want to. Either way, I'm happy to work with you no matter how you would like to do so. So if you are interested, just email me at execmagazine@mrhenterprises.com. I will be happy to send you the sample Excel spreadsheet that I used today. So thank you all for joining me. I hope that this has been helpful to you in understanding the different kinds of lookup formulas that are available to you in Microsoft Excel. And I hope you've got the wheels turning for how you might be able to put this into work in your own office. And hopefully it will save you hours and hours of time of retyping things that you don't need to be typing from scratch every time. This can dramatically cut down routine data entry if you get these formulas set up. So again, thank you all for joining me for this Executive Secretary Magazine admin chat. I hope to see you at one of my future sessions as well. Bye, everyone. Thanks.